On the war in the Middle East now. Joining us now, I have retired U.S. Navy Vice Admiral John Fozzie Miller and also Blaise Mishdow, Vice President of Policy at the Jewish Institute for National Security of America, along with News Nation's Robert Sherman and Trevor Shirley as well. Gentlemen, good morning to all of you. Thank you for your time. Admiral, if I could just start with you, because I think one of the most interesting things about all these latest developments is that we're now waking up this morning in an extended, indefinite ceasefire. Does this work in or against our favor?
Well, right now, Marquis, good morning. Thanks for having me. It doesn't look like it's working at all because the Iranians have been busy in the Strait of Hormuz attacking ships again, which is, of course, a violation of the ceasefire. I think probably a nice decision to give the Iranians a little bit of time to regroup and come up with a diplomatic solution to the end of this conflict, but it's not clear to me that they're able to do that or necessarily willing to do that. And so if they're going to continue to attack ships in the Strait of Hormuz has to be open when this conflict is over, then perhaps negotiations isn't the way we're going to be able to go.
Yeah. Blaise, let me ask you about the breaking news just from this morning. We've led the top of every show with it. The fact that you have 3 cargo or container ships that have been attacked early this morning, mere hours after that ceasefire was extended. How is this all complicating, efforts to bring both sides back to the table at some point?
Yeah, good morning, Mark. It's good to be with you, and it's good to be on with Admiral Miller, who I've had the pleasure to work with at JINSA. It's clear that I think both sides are engaged in a game of chicken, trying to figure out who has the stronger position and who can make the other flinch first. President Trump has the blockade, which is keeping Iran from exporting its oil, from getting the revenue it needs to try to keep its faltering economy and this regime in power. And Iran thinks that it has a card to play here in terms of keeping shipping from coming out through the Strait of Hormuz by continuing to attack ships, as Admiral Miller mentioned. And so I think it's a bit of a waiting game to see who can hold out the longest, who's going to suffer the most under this pressure. Is it going to be Iran from losing oil revenue? Is it going to be President Trump from the economic global repercussions of oil not getting out from the Strait of Hormuz? But I do think that we're seeing signs of the Iranian regime starting to fight amongst itself, struggle for power, and I think that actually leads to the potential solution here of ultimately this regime collapsing at some point, maybe sooner rather than later.
Trevor, let me bring you in from the White House just to elaborate off that point and all these reports that the regime is fractured. Trump even cited Iran's government as being seriously fractured as the reason for the extension and why he agreed to it. I'm curious what your White House sources are telling you about why he cares if the regime is fractured there. I mean, we've gone after several of their, major targets in terms of leadership. We killed the Ayatollah on the first day. Why does he care if there's a fracture in the regime?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a stretch to believe that the regime is as fractured as the president is saying it is. Certainly the Ayatollah, the last Ayatollah was killed. There's a new one in charge. But the Iranians have shown themselves to be particularly resilient, even as the fighting continued prior to the ceasefire. I think the president's certainly trying to use that as some kind of leverage as this ceasefire continues, which he's now extended. But I don't think the regime is as fractured as the White House is saying publicly, just based on what we've been seeing in terms of them still going after targets in the Strait of Hormuz, as well as them really, not being committal as to whether or not these talks are going to happen. I understand that there is that split between the IRGC and some of the other leadership, but in terms of their overall strategy, they seem to be showing a fairly unified front as they continue, to some extent, stringing the administration along.
Admiral, as far as the action that we've seen this morning with the ships, you said something right off the top there where you said it seems to be a violation of the ceasefire that was extended last night. At what point do we decide to move ahead with military force again?
Well, I think as soon as it becomes clear that the Iranians are not either willing or able to negotiate in good faith, and that's whether or not the regime is internally so out of sorts that it can't come up with a negotiating position, or they just would like to to feel that way. But once it becomes clear that the current pressure that we have on the regime is substantial with the blockade because its economic pressure goes right after their money. But as soon as we realize that's not going to be enough to negotiate a successful end to the conflict, then I think we have no other choice.
Robert, you're live in Tel Aviv, and we just got this breaking new report this morning from Reuters that has said that the U.S. military has introduced these Ukrainian counterattack drones technology here in recent weeks. You just sat down for an exclusive interview with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Let me play a bit of that interview, and let's chat on the other side.
You are not able to defend yourself by Patriot missiles. You will not have them because the volume for today of production per year in the United States, about 60 per month. So you will have 700 per year. Even if you will have 7,000 now, it's not enough to defend. So you need cheaper and quicker in production.
Yeah, Robert, I don't know if you've yet gotten a chance to talk to sources this morning. This just broke a little bit ago. But what's your read on that? What might your sources' reads be on that? Does it signal that we're running out of tools in our arsenal?
Well, at the very least, it signals that we live in a completely different era of warfare, Marky. And this is something that you've seen many of the Gulf states talking about in particular, because the weapons that are coming here towards Israel, these long-range ballistic missiles, it's a completely different theater in the Gulf in which you have seen those cheaply made Shahed drones, which have really been the weapon of choice, particularly in the UAE. So, I mean, while countries such as the UAE, Saudi Arabia have invested heavily in highly advanced air defense systems, I mean, as President Zelensky pointed out, there just isn't enough production in order to keep up with that, especially if Iran is able to throw a lot in the air. And that's why these Gulf states have been striking deals with Ukraine recently in order to try and build cheaper defense products in order to shoot down those Shahed drones. And I'd even add as well is that President Zelensky has even said that Ukrainian experts have not only been on the ground in the Middle East advising these Gulf states, they have also assisted in shooting down some of Iran's weapons as well. So the Ukrainians have been heavily involved here in the last couple of weeks trying to showcase their technology. And it has certainly resonated, not just for defending airspace, but as he pointed out, also defending the Strait of Hormuz, other key waterways. It's a more cohesive ecosystem.
Well, keep us posted what more you might hear there. Blaze, let me just give you the last word as we look ahead to later this week. Now you've got a second round of talks between Israel and Lebanon scheduled to happen tomorrow in D.C. Marco Rubio heading those up. What do you expect from that and how that might change the whole landscape and dynamic of negotiating across the Middle East?
Yeah, I think that it's much more likely that whatever happens with between the United States and Iran will have an impact on the Israel-Lebanon talks in the way that we saw last week. Iranian demands lead to that ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon. I don't think that we're going to see the arrow go the other way. What happens with Lebanon isn't going to force Iran's hand one way or the other or change the U.S. negotiating position. So it'd be nice to see some progress there, but I don't think it's going to impact what's happening with Iran.
Well, certainly a lot up in the air right now. Blaise Mishtal, Vice Admiral John Fozzie Miller, Robert Sherman, Trevor Shirley, to all of you, thanks so very much. Appreciate your time. Happening today, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is back on Capitol